Spider-Man!
What? Spider-Man? Where? Where? Oh, I just get so flustered when I meet a celebrity. I just don't know what to say.
Spider-Man, one of the most enduringly popular comic book characters ever created. His timeless struggle between heroic ideals and the necessities of daily life have proven him to be highly relatable to generations of fans. And then there's this version of Spider-Man.
Surrender by order of Lord Tiger and the High Evolutionary.
And everything was going so well till now.
The Spider-Man series, time forgot. But before we get too deep, please subscribe to the Nerdstalgic channel in order to keep up with all of our videos. It's hard to remember a time before Spider-Man was a box office juggernaut. However, despite his current cultural ubiquity, he wasn't always considered the most commercially viable superhero on the planet. In fact, it arguably wasn't even the iconic Raimi interpretation of Spider-Man that put him on Hollywood's and a generation of fans' radar. It was this version.
Wait here. What? But I just have to toss out the garbage.
The Fox Kids animated series titled Spider-Man ran from November 19, 1994 to January 31, 1998. A total of 5 seasons encompassing 65 episodes were produced. It received rave reviews and high ratings for the duration of its run. However, the John Semper-helmed version of Our Friendly Neighborhood Wall Crawler was thought to have aged out of its key demographics, and so it was not renewed for the 6th season, despite ending on one of the most dramatic cliffhangers in kids' animated programming.
Well, Madam Web, where to now?
Face front, true believer. We are going to find the real Mary Jane Watson.
Ostensibly, as soon as the show went off the air, Marvel, Fox, and Saban, the production company behind X-Men the Animated Series and Power Rangers, started having conversations about reviving the show or creating a new incarnation of Spider-Man to feed the hungry audience pool. Only there was one catch. Marvel Comics had just declared bankruptcy and had sold off all the film rights to their most popular characters in order to stay solvent, which meant this new version of Spidey, it couldn't include anything from the source material. So what did Marvel, Fox, and Saban do? Well, at first they discussed making a motion comic adaptation of the initial 26 Steve Ditko and Stan Lee issues of Amazing Spider-Man. But these plans were abandoned quickly, thankfully, because of all the previously mentioned rights issues. They next discussed adapting Spider-Man 2099, a futuristic Spider-Man story about billionaire geneticist Miguel O'Hara 100 years in the future. However, this also didn't land on receptive ears because WB had just launched Batman Beyond. Avi Arad, the individual behind many of Marvel's initial forays onto the stage and screen, contacted Will Meugniot, animation producer, writer, and illustrator, to create something wholly new for Spidey's next animated cinematic outing. And what we got was ostensibly Blade Runner meets Planet of the Apes, starring Spider-Man. The central plot of Spider-Man Unlimited is that J. Jonah Jameson's son, John, is an astronaut who's piloting a rocket to the newly discovered Counter-Earth. At the rocket launch, Spider-Man witnesses Venom and Carnage sneak onto the rocket ship and hitch a ride, eventually causing the rocket to appear to crash on the alternate planet. Presuming his son dead, Jameson places a bounty on Spider-Man's head, who he blames for the accident, forcing the web-slinger to steal a rocket of his own, upgrade his suit, and make a beeline for alternate Earth in an attempt to save John Jameson. However, what Spidey isn't prepared for is the fact that the entire planet is run by animal-human hybrids with a dystopian overlord named the High Evolutionary. Spider-Man quickly falls in with a ragtag group of human rebels, led by John Jameson, and helps them lead a resistance against a totalitarian and anti-human governmental regime. Over the course of the show, Spider-Man gets a job taking photos at the Daily Bite, Counter-Earth's Daily Bugle, rents a room from a kindly doctor named Naoko Yamada-Jones, and consistently has to balance attempting to help lead the human resistance and paying rent, just like any good Spider-Man story should function. The primary antagonists of this show are the High Evolutionary's enforcers, the Knights of Wundagore. 4 flying robot horse-riding anthropomorphized heavies. Are they as cool as the Sinister Six? No, not really. They kind of suffer from the same fate everything in this show does. Just not enough development. Despite being a show without any source material, you can feel that Will Meugniot and writers Michael Reeves, Larry Bordy, and Robert Gregory Brown all have lots of ideas for where to take this story. You know, the strangest part of the show, though, is the fact that it's lightly in continuity with the original 1994 version. Sometimes. The way the universe of Spider-Man Unlimited works is that everything about Earth also exists on Counter-Earth, but just a bit different. which doesn't really make sense because it's not an alternate universe's Earth that has appeared in our solar system. It's a planet that has always existed exactly parallel to Earth, so we've never been able to see it because of the sun. The execution of that concept probably wouldn't even draw attention to that fact if it wasn't for the fact that quite a few of Spidey's traditional villains show up on Counter-Earth in alternate form. The only established Marvel character that appears in Unlimited that doesn't appear in the '94 show is Jack Kirby's Machine Man. And ironically, this version of Machine Man isn't that far off from the original in terms of execution. You know, aside from the fact that Machine Man, canonically, within Marvel Comics, is literally the baby from the end of 2001, A Space Odyssey. Yeah, wild story, look it up. The key distinction between the original show and Unlimited, animal people aside, is the art style. The style of the show, established by Mineo and refined by character designers Shannon Eric Denton and Roy Burdine, has a more angular comic book-inspired aesthetic. They had large black spots, chunky holding lines, sharp angular features, and an attempt at filtering in cyberpunk aesthetics. The show also used color in an unconventional way for 1999. All the backgrounds were painted by Kelly Atkins and Philip Kim, and color-styled by Joe Mineo, again, opting for large black areas and also day glow, almost watercolor warmth to the cityscapes. Side note, it also features one of the best intro credits in any superhero show ever, with a near panel-for-panel recreation of Ditko's artwork. It's fantastic. Which brings us to the suit. Today, a world populated by a young version of Spider-Man who's consistently appearing in $200 million blockbusters while wearing a robotic Spider-Man suit designed for him by Tony Stark. The fact that Spider-Man Unlimited was wearing a robotic suit powered by nanobots designed for him by Reed Richards doesn't seem that crazy, but it was. This suit had extra abilities, a sleek new aesthetic that was definitely not ripped off from Spidey 2099, and a cape made of webs. And as if all this crazy stuff wasn't enough to get you to go watch it, the show lasted 13 episodes and, wait for it, ends on a cliffhanger. Yep, it only had a few brief moments in the sun before it was apparently flushed from everyone's memories. This show is so rarely talked about in fan circles, they've never even brought the suit back as a nostalgia play in the comics. So why did Spidey Unlimited get the axe? You see, it wasn't actually the ratings that killed Spider-Man Unlimited, it was Pokemon. The pocket monsters we all know and love were such a sales bonanza that it caused most of the networks to reevaluate their slates of shows and refocus their development dollars on new shows aimed at copying or interpreting Pokemon's formula. Plans for a second season were actually underway prior to the official cancellation. Larry Brody, the previously mentioned Spider-Man Unlimited staff writer, actually created outlines and scripts for numerous episodes and an overall plan to create 11 new episodes that would bring the show to a close. The lasting impact of Spider-Man Unlimited is hard to pin down. It feels like hardcore Spidey heads really love the show, but in terms of the wider audience, it's completely forgotten. I think part of the reason it's not well remembered is because the basic setup, while really interesting at first glance, is shaky. Is it an alternate universe or just another planet? Why are there parallel versions of characters we know? And why doesn't Spider-Man react to them? The other aspect of the show that hurts its rewatchability is that Spider-Man isn't particularly heroic in it. He's always reacting to what everyone else is doing. He's constantly telling John Jameson, "This isn't our fight. People are being oppressed, Spider-Man. Whatever happened to with great power comes great responsibility." I know when I first watched it as it was airing, I was irate that the show was not going to acknowledge anything about Spider-Man the Animated Series Cliffhanger, with Madame Web and Spidey going out into the multiverse to find his version of Mary Jane. But after the initial ire wore off, I really enjoyed the show as it was airing. And in rewatching it for this video, I got to say it's a bit clumsy and doesn't exactly know what it's doing sometimes, but the general thrust of it rules. If nothing else, come on, the suit is fantastic. And that's that for this week. What do you think? Is it time to reevaluate Spider-Man Unlimited? Let us know in the comments below. And as always, please subscribe to the Nerdstalgic channel in order to stay up with everything Nerdstalgic.